In 1976, two monstrous roaring machines crossed the Atlantic Ocean. Not for war, not for diplomacy, but for something just as dramatic. This is Le Mans, the pinnacle of European endurance racing. Precision, engineering, discipline. Not exactly where you'd expect to find a pair of American stock cars built for left turns and loud engines. But that year, 1976, NASCAR invaded Le Mans. The idea was born from a cross-promotional deal. The ACO, the organizers of Le Mans, were looking to spice things up, and what better way to do that than importing two good old American race cars to thunder through the French countryside. As a show of good hospitality, Le Mans organizers reached out to NASCAR founder Bill France, who also organized the 24 Hours of Daytona, a race that had recently grown in stature in the world of endurance racing. As the story goes, the French organizers wanted to also help symbolize the 200th anniversary of the American Revolutionary War and the role that the French played in assisting the Patriots. Regardless of the true meaning or intent behind the invitation, the ACO always wanted to keep innovating. Spectacle had been part of the mix, and publicity stunts like this just added to that idea. There would be an all-new class created, Grand International, and it would contain two prime American muscle cars with classic V8s. Enter the Dodge Charger, driven by veteran Hershel McGriff and his son Doug. And on the other hand, we have the Ford Torino, fielded by Junie Donlevy with drivers Richard Brooks and Dick Hutcherson, who, notably, had already raced at Le Mans many years ago with Ford's legendary GT program. McGriff and the Charger also had a long history with road racing, so it made sense for Bill France to send over some of his guys that already had a road racing pedigree. Neither team was a big frontrunner in NASCAR, as Donlevy joked that he couldn't find a way to pay for the team to race at Riverside in California, yet somehow found himself in France. This was because NASCAR and the ACO together paid for all the expenses for the two NASCAR teams to get over to France, and history was well on its way to being made. It would be a brand new experience for everyone involved, including the drivers and team members. Talk about feeling special. There we were, a bunch of guys from Richmond, Virginia, running a Ford stock car against those Porsches and Ferraris and prototypes. Let me tell you, that was the last place I ever expected to race, McGriff stated. When race proceedings finally got underway, these two cars were genuinely a sight to behold. The French media dubbed them the two monsters. Towering over their European counterparts, the Charger and Torino were loud, brash, and totally out of place. But they were also a hit. Fans at the track loved them. To pass inspection, the cars needed some upgrades. Headlights, wipers, side mirrors, radios, and lower compression engines to run on European fuel. Finally, race day came around. The Charger and Torino lined up among Porsche 911s, BMWs, and Ferrari prototypes. It was a surreal sight. But the whole dream lasted about 2 laps. The Charger's engine failed almost immediately, barely completing a second lap. The culprit? Misjudged fuel octane. I was really disappointed in our performance. We made a big mistake, for which I guess I have to blame myself, on the octane of fuel that was available in France for the race. I thought the fuel was around 90 octane, and of course we were used to running 101 or 102. I passed this along to my engine man, and he built 3 lower compression motors for the 90 grade stuff. But it turned out the real octane was more like 82 or 83, McGriff said. The Torino, however, pressed on. For nearly 11 hours, it thundered down the Mulsanne Straight, the deep growl of the V8 drowning out everything in its path. But eventually, it too was forced to retire with a transmission failure, and it left the race unclassified. Despite both early exits, the experience left a mark. The American teams were welcomed, respected, and remembered. McGriff recalled how the French fans adored the sound of the V8s, and how kids cheered just to see the cars roll by. For a week, in almost every paper, there was a picture of it, McGriff said of his Charger. They loved it because it was big and loud and had a different engine roar. Too bad it didn't run any longer than it did. This experiment was not repeated for another 47 years, when a NASCAR stock car finally made its return in 2023. But the Garage 56 Camaro fielded by Hendrick Motorsports had plenty of modifications to make it more palatable for Le Mans, like better brakes and a better gearbox. The Charger and Torino didn't. Just the necessary additions like windshield wipers and the like. Otherwise, those two cars were pure American stock cars lifted straight from the tracks of the South. This whole event came at a time when NASCAR was trying to raise its stature domestically against IndyCar racing, while the ACO tried whatever it took to keep endurance racing relevant during the commercial rise of Formula One in the late 1970s. And for one brief moment, two NASCAR beasts roared through France, not to compete, but to collide worlds against each other in a mutually beneficial partnership. That partnership has never truly gone out the window. Today we see the convergence of regulations between the World Endurance Championship and IMSA, a subsidiary of NASCAR, as they have tried to raise the tide of worldwide endurance racing. That cooperation has paid off in spades, and a lot of it can be traced back to 1976, when the ACO and Bill France got together and put on a show for fans across the world. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.